What's going on, everybody? Welcome back into the channel. Today we're going to be going over a double yellow Kazuda Xiono deck. Uh, it's been a lot of fun. I'm not going to lie, when I first saw the leader, I wasn't happy about the character. I watched the Resistance cartoon. It's fine, but I was hoping for something else when it came to the final leader. But when I saw its ability, obviously that changes. Also, being able to come out on 4 resources makes it extremely strong with this ability as well. So, like, I figured that we'd obviously trying to build a fast deck makes sense, right? I opted to go with double yellow over red. I know that red allows you to play with fun things like Heroic Sacrifice and Trench Run, but I don't know. I feel like this is the way that I wanted to go. Still, again, early in the deck building process, things are going to change, but if you guys are excited for this and you are new to the channel, make sure you hit that sub button down below. Let's hop into talking about the leader, right? The leader's ability is actually quite good, right? Action, exhaust the leader. A friendly unit loses all abilities for this round. Take an extra action after this one. That last line is what makes it good, right? So if you had to just use this action and then your opponent got to go, it would not be good. It would just not even be it would be viable, but it would give your opponent pretty much the ability to get the initiative at the start of every turn. So it just wouldn't really matter too much, right? But being able to do the action and then also be able to take an action after the fact is really strong. I opted to go with Petronaki Arena to get that +1, and I'll explain why when we get a little bit further. But this deck, I opted to go kind of like super fast. Now, the reason I say is it's just another fast deck, right? Kylo, Ren, Yellow, super fast deck, can win some games, but didn't really sit at the top of the meta. Is this something a little bit different? Potentially, in my opinion, because it is double yellow, and I'll explain why I think it's a little bit different, right? For the epic action, if you control 4 more resources, you can deploy him as a leader on the ground, or you can have him as a pilot. When he is on the ground, he is a 2/5, which, again, he's swinging in like Sabine, so that's not too bad there. Or he goes on to the space units as a +3/+3. That's really strong. It's a free General's Blade on the 4 flip turn on your vehicles, so that's just really solid. Also, on attack, choose any number of friendly units. They lose all abilities for this round, so this can hit multiple things, allowing you to keep multiple things on the board, because some cards you're going to want to use this ability for, obviously, in this deck. I do think that currently my deck might need a little bit more space units, but it has been doing pretty good. At the end of this video, I'm going to be showing you a game against a Han double yellow deck, and we'll kind of compare the two, right? As in, just see how it matches up against the meta as it is right now. We are going to start off with the ground units as we always do, and we have Greedo, 1-drop, 3/1. Again, we want to put down these small units to provide that pressure early. We also have 2 R2D2s to allow you to do some digging, right? You can scry, kind of get that cycling that you want to get, so you can make sure you can see what you want early game to kind of set you up for that 4 resource turn, right? We have L337. It can be played out of Smuggle, but it also gets that shield when played. It's just really good. Also, it can capture, it can, get a captured card. Not really used for that, but early game, I still think that Tarkin Town and pinging decks are going to be a thing, so getting that shielded unit is just really solid and keeping it on the board so you can still get in that damage when you can. We have Leia Organa. It's really good. You can go ahead and exhaust a unit, or you can ready up a resource for yourself. This allows you to play extra units, and that's really what I use it for in this deck, right? We have Cartel Turncoat, Greedo, R2D2 as 1-drops, and then if you do get Leia, you can go ahead and play Leia and another 1-drop on the field. You kind of want to, in an ideal situation, get those 2 cards onto the board on your first turn, or an L3 if you are playing against a ping deck, right? I have 3 Rebel Pathfinders. The reason why I chose to go with Rebel Pathfinders, overthrowing in a ship in space, which this could easily become a 2/3 ship in space. It might end up becoming that as I continue to test. But right now I ended up going with Rebel Pathfinder because Sentinels that slow you down could be a problem. So if you are playing against a heavy Sentinel deck, that could be a problem for this deck at times. So I do have the Saboteur on the ground, and I have another one in the Rogue Operative, again, for that reason. We have Bodhi Rook being able to, when played, just look at your opponent's hand, get rid of a non-unit card, which is pretty good when you're playing against maybe Cad Bane and now there are two of them, or Cunnings with Han, or just anything like that. Some other burst damage events like Surprise Strike, Heroic Sacrifice. It's just good to kind of smack those things, Overwhelm Barrage. So save it for when you really think your opponent is going to play a certain card and get rid of it so you don't have to deal with it. We have Contracted Hunter as one of the new cards that go really well with this leader because it has Ambush. It's a 4/4, overstated for a 3 cost, but when the regroup phase starts, defeat it. If you do use Xiono's ability, it gets rid of that. So it does get to stay on the field as a 4/4. And again, for 3, a 4/4 is just really strong. It doesn't have that 5 HP, but it does swing in for 4. So again, and that ambush. So it's just really, really strong. We have Rogue Operative, like I said before. If you are playing against someone who has a lot of Sentinels, that could be a problem for this deck. So just having that option to be able to still swing in with Saboteur for 4, or with pump events like Surprise Strike for 7, or Hot Shot DL 44 Blaster, you're going to be hitting in for 6. It's just a good option if they are playing some Sentinels against you. And then we're rocking 3 Cantina Bouncers. This was originally a 1 of, but I opted to go up to a 3 of. Again, you can see some changes. When this deck is going really well, you're going super fast in the early game, and then they are going to try to stop you with their big units, Sentinels, stuff like that. Being able to drop down a Cantina Bouncer to bounce up one of their plays that is potentially a Sentinel on the 5 resource turn to give you that option to swing in for game is just a good thing to have, I think. It might go down to a 2 of if I want to go ahead and, again, run more space. I do think that I want to adjust a little bit more into space, but we'll see how it goes. I think it's been a lot of fun so far with Cantina Bouncer, and which is why I ended up putting it up to a 3 of instead of a 2 of or a 1 of. Now getting into our space units, we have Cartel Turncoat. Cartel Turncoat in this deck allows you to use his ability to get rid of the bounty, which is pretty nice, so you don't have to worry about your opponent drawing a card when they do choose to kind of take it out. We have the Fireball, another card that goes really well with Xiono. It has Ambush. It's a 3/3 for 2. Really strong, again, overstated ambush card. But when the regroup phase starts, deal 1 damage to this unit, so you're going to want to use your leader ability to prevent that 1 damage. Okay? When you put Xiono on this, it's a 6/6, and with Petronaki Arena, it is a 7/6. And making it a really big smack early, like, again, being able to swing in for 7 on with one of your units on the 4 resource turn, we've seen how fast and potent it can be with Sabine. And again, in this deck, it's really easy to get that off with a Millennium Falcon Fireball and stuff like that. You can swing in for 6-7 damage on that 4 resource turn fairly easy. And again, an overstated 2-drop is always good. Being able to, against other aggro decks like a Sabine, if they do go into space, to play this to get rid of their Green Squadron A-Wing or something, to stop them from getting their damage in early, and then you go ahead and use Xiono's ability to make sure that you can keep in your pressure, which is just really nice. I went with I don't know if this is the right choice, but the reason I went for this is because it gets a shield when you have another yellow cunning unit on the board, right? The Privateer is just there for the shielded unit. It's kind of like L337. If I have another cunning unit on board, the Privateer allows you to get that shielded unit and then potentially not have to fear losing it, which gives Xiono an easy jump into space, especially if he is shielded, right? He would end up being a 5/5 shielded, which can allow you to, again, deal out that damage. Surprise Strike, you're hitting in for 8 damage. It's just really strong. So I felt like it was pretty good because we are in double yellow. We have pretty much everything in this deck outside of Rebel Pathfinder and R2D2, which is why the Rebel Pathfinder could probably end up switching into a cunning space unit, because we do have those rogue operatives for the Saboteur slot. So maybe we go ahead and we switch that Rebel Pathfinder into a different space unit just to give you that option, right? But still, I think that coming in with a shield, yes, it doesn't have a lot of HP, but when you flip over Xiono and make it a 5/5 with a shield, I think it does have some merit to be in this deck, especially because it is a low cost and you can kind of just drop down your hand. We have the Millennium Falcon piece of junk. Is so good, especially with Xiono. Not have to pay the Falcon tax is super good. So you can go ahead and you can play out your Millennium Falcon on turn 2, use Iono's ability so you don't have to pay Falcon tax on the next turn, and then swing in for base for 3 or take out one of their units, allowing you to then be able to play Cunning on their turn, you flip out Xiono on the Millennium Falcon. You're swinging it in for 6, potentially 11 damage on turn 4. It is really, really strong. So, again, just a good option, right? And then we have the Geonosis Patrol Fighter. Oh my gosh. This is another way to bounce your opponent's early units back to their hand to allow you to also have board control while also being able to go wide, right? So I do like to have 2 units on the board for turn 1, swing with both of them if I can, and then use one of them as an exploit target to then bounce back whatever my opponent played the next turn. It could be really good. It's also good for decks that play late game low costed sentinels. You just get rid of one of your units that have already attacked to allow you to go ahead and swing into their base, getting around those low costed sentinels. I think that this is a really solid play. You can argue maybe it should be a one of because it is better with the exploit early game, but you know, I like it as a 2 of right now. And again, this is just an early shell. I'm going to continue to work on it and we'll see how the deck like finalizes, but for what I have currently, I feel like it's working pretty well, right? Going into our events, we have 10 events. We have 2 breaking in. Again, Saboteur, when people put down those sentinels, you still want those options to go ahead and still get in those final lethal shots. So Saboteur, you gain Saboteur and you get +2/+0. Breaking in is just pretty solid there. Surprise Strike, obviously we're an aggro deck. We're going to be adding in those Surprise Strikes and those +3/+0s and attacking. Waylay, another option to get rid of some scary cards on the board. So just this allows you to get rid of any non-leader unit, just bounce it right back to your opponent's hand. I have that as a 2 of. And then we have 3 Cunnings, super good. Obviously, you can choose any 2 in any order. Return a non-leader unit that costs 4 or less, that has 4 or less power to the opponent's hand. So you can bounce low power units back to your opponent's hand, which is good. You can also exhaust 2 units. So if you are fearing taking some heavy damage, you can go ahead and exhaust those 2 units. You can give something +4/+0 for the phase, which is what we're going to try to do often. Against yellow decks, it is kind of scary because they can just waylay whatever you put in, unless you are doing it to your leader. But then they can go ahead and use maybe the No Good to Be Dead or stuff like that to exhaust your leader, right? But if they can't, you're able to go ahead and let's just say on the Fireball or Millennium Falcon, if you have Kazuda on that unit, he is smacking in for 11 and potentially on turn 4. That is a third of your base if you're playing a 30 HP base, or more if you're playing a base that has less than 30 HP. So it's just really strong in this deck. And then if your opponent has like 1 card in hand or just not many cards in hand, especially against that Han matchup when they're using their hand as resources, sometimes it's good just to make them discard a random card. They don't get to choose, and you could end up hitting something that they want to play that turn, which is always good feeling, right? So Cunning, just really solid card. It's why I opted to go with double yellow over red. I think Surprise Strike, obviously it can be run in red, but the addition of Cunning is just really good. Yes, you can use Xiono's ability to make it so Heroic Sacrifice doesn't defeat your unit, but you still get to draw a card and get +2. That's good, because card draw is always good. Trench Run, being able to get +4 for an attack with a fighter is really good, but we don't have many fighters, right? We have the Turncoat, we have the Fireball, and then we have the Privateer. Other than that, we also have the Geonosis Fighter, but like that's not like enough to warrant me wanting to get rid of Cunning for Trench Run, because Cunning allows you to add +4 into anything. So we have anything gets +4. Yes, it takes the extra action, but still you have that option for the late game. It allows you to bounce something back to your opponent's hand or just exhaust something. This is an aggro deck. You don't want to be yes, you want to outpace your opponent, but if you're playing against your opponent who's also playing aggro, they can potentially outpace you. This is a great card to have in your back pocket, right? And then I have 2 Hotshot Blasters. Probably should go to 3, which is why I ended up in the sideboard. But I do think that 2 is okay. 3 is probably what I'm gonna want to see, right? Let's go into the sideboard here. It's early sideboard. I do think that things are gonna probably end up changing. We have the extra Hotshot Blaster. If I'm going up against an aggro matchup, I want to outspeed them a little bit easier. Bamboozle, again, playing against something that wants to use pilots or anything like that. It's just good to have. I think in this set, it might actually end up going into the sideboard as we continue to get more testing in. Spark Rebellion, again, being able to look at your opponent's hand, getting rid of a card, always good. I have my 3rd Rogue Operative, just in case. And then I have Kira. Being able to make something cost more from your opponent's deck against that control matchup could be pretty good. And then I have Plo Koon if I do need an ambush threat on the ground. I do think the Rebel Pathfinder is probably going to end up getting swapped out. So what you see on the screen might be a little bit different. Just because, like, yeah, the Rebel Pathfinder is good for the Saboteur, right? But I do think that you could end up... I'm thinking about putting in the Hotshot V-Wing instead of it, just giving you that extra option in space. And I think that's what I'm going to end up doing. So when you see the list down in the description, that's probably going to be in there instead of Rebel Pathfinder. But let me know what you guys think about that. Are you fearing the Sentinels early game to where Rebel Pathfinder is better? I don't know about that because you have a lot of options to bounce those early Sentinels. So I do think that I am going to go with the Hotshot V-Wing over the Rebel Pathfinder. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and show you a game against Han Double Yellow, and you're going to see just how fast and potent this deck can potentially be with Double Yellow, right? So we'll be right back. All right, so we have the matchup between Xiono Double Yellow and Han Double Yellow. This is, I feel like, a pretty good matchup for both decks because both decks have access to cunning. Both decks can be really fast. Han Solo has the ability to cheat out big units to threaten the small units that Xiono puts out. So it might be better on the Han side, but also the fact that I can juke out multiple units at a time is difficult for the Han player to deal with at times as well. So I think this is a pretty good matchup to see where this deck kind of lies. The Han player has the initiative, and we'll see how this one goes. The Han player does choose to put down his second resource. Let's talk about that, right? Obviously, he does need to put down his second resource, and he goes with the Han ability to get out the Falcon, right? I have a Kurtal Turncoat in my hand. I can't put it out there knowing that it's going to be my only unit for the turn and it can die to the Falcon, right? So I put down the L37. I get that shield. He deals 3 to my base. I elect to put the Kurtal Turncoat into my resource row. Yes, I could have put R2 because obviously the Leia stopping the Falcon massive damage is pretty good here. But I opted to keep the R2 for the cycling to try to get my events, right? I exhaust his Falcon to stop the extra 3 damage this turn, and allowing me to get 2 damage in on his base, so we're almost even. He still has more HP, obviously, because he is running 30 HP base, but I think it's pretty good to at least stop the 3 damage from the Falcon if he does have that surprise strike, which I do believe he did, and that did stop him from being able to go ahead and deal, 6 damage to my base this turn, and actually had to make him change what he wanted to do. So he had put the tech in the resource row the turn prior, so now he has to go ahead and use Han's ability to get the tech from the resource row onto the field. And me playing Xiono, I don't think I fear the DJ as much as other decks do. A lot of my cards are very low costed. My leader comes out on 4, so he has to go ahead and use Han's ability to get that DJ flip right on 5 resources for next turn to make it go. So I have that extra turn to flip Xiono on the ground or in space anyway, so I can still use my 4 resources in that way. So I'm not really fearing the DJ play. My goal right now is he has that Falcon up. That's really scary, and he can deal out a lot of damage quickly. So we have the 3 units on the ground, but that's only totaling 5 damage, and he's totaling 5 damage as well with his 2 units, but also has that tech to smuggle out pretty much anything he wants from the resource row. The fear of getting surprise striked as well from the resource row can be scary for the late game, but I think I made the decision to kind of just let tech kind of chill, and we'll see if it pays off. You see the surprise, the Spark Rebellion coming out of the resources because he has to pop the resource from the Han ability. All right, now you go ahead and you see the cunning because he wants to tap down the R2 so I can't cycle through. And then he's also going to tap down. It didn't really matter what he tapped here. They both do 2 damage. And if he tapped down the L3 and I didn't want to attack with it, he can at least kill the Leia if I didn't want to attack with the Leia. But he also pumps the Falcon, right? So he hits me for 7 here. And I'm up to 10 damage already, and that is scary business. We continue on here. I'm trying to think, like, do I want to... He did use all of the resources, so I do go for my Falcon play. I have Falcon out, and yes, he used Cunning to deal that 7 damage into base. He is going to go ahead and swing 2 more into base, putting me at 12. But I'm going to go ahead and bring out my leader, and I can go ahead and swing for 7 as well. I did have to use cunning, so if I do end up having cunning next turn, it's pretty good. So I could have attacked into the Falcon, which in hindsight maybe I should have here, but you see the cunning draw, which is a really good top deck, and so we're kind of going from there, knowing that I have the Falcon on board. He can't waylay it, right? He has to use cunning to exhaust it, and stuff like that. So like, I'm not really worrying about the cunning or the waylay because you can't do it. So I have a 7 swinging Falcon at all times in space, and this is something that you're gonna have to probably deal with against this deck. You do not want any space units lingering, especially don't want to really use your resources early on your turn, which he didn't really do a bad play, right? He used cunning on 4 resources, which is a good play. He got to deal 7 damage in the base. I happen to have the Falcon and to counteract that cunning, right? But it's 11 to 12 damage currently on the board. So he is still ahead and he has a lot more HP, but I'm threatening with 7 every turn. You see the Falcon come in for another 3, putting me at 15. And I'm going to go ahead and I use my cunning here because if he does have that DJ, he didn't flip it out now. So I can go ahead and bounce his tech back to his hand. And I'm going to go ahead and give the +4/+0 to my Falcon. I'm just going to leave the card there. Now that it's glaring and it's going to blind you guys, I do apologize about that. But it's just to signify that he has +4/+0. I should get an exclamation point token. I just didn't have it on me, right? But it has +4/+0, so I'm swinging in for 11 here, right? And that's massive. 11 plus the 5 on the ground, that's 16. So I'd be putting him at 27 health if everything gets through this turn, right? So he is going to go ahead and just play Azari Bliss. That's all he had, I guess. I am going to go ahead and swing 11. Even with the Plo Koon, it wouldn't have mattered. Or he could have bought out the Han, right? Which he's going to do now because he could have done something there. But getting rid of the units in that slow, it would take a lot of resource actions, you know what I mean? So he could have done Han last turn. He could have got the 6. He could have flipped out Han. I would have still gotten the 11 damage off and the 2 damage off, right? He could have taken out the R2. I just elect to take the initiative here anyway. I don't need the extra damage. I swing in for 11 next turn. If he had a Bamboozle in hand, it would have been pretty good. But he didn't have anything else. And I just go in next turn with the Falcon. But this just showing that the Falcon with Xiono, just being able to, if you can even outweight your opponent, just have them spend their 4 resources first. It's a devastating hit. 7 multiple turns. So I did 18 damage in 2 swings with Xiono alone, right? I got those little cheap shots in with LG 37 and Leia, but like just the Falcon and Xiono and the ability to not have to pay the Falcon tax with Xiono whenever it attacks on the Falcon is also super nice. So it's just really scary. I could see you playing the other Falcon in this deck as well. Because if you go ahead and you play Xiono on the other Falcon, it is a bigger hitting Falcon, because you would end up going to 7 off of just the Falcon's ability because it's +0/+0 for every pilot on it, and then it also gets the +1 from Petronaki Arena, so you're swinging in for 8 on that Falcon, so that's pretty good. Also, if I did end up throwing that Falcon in this deck, though, I would end up wanting to throw in some pilots, which I could do that. I could throw in some, the R2, the other R2. It's another 1/4. I did prioritize the cycling over it, but again, over some changes, we're going to see what works better against more matchups, right? With that being said, if you guys did enjoy the deck, make sure you check down below in the description to see the deck list if you want to try it out yourself and make some changes. Let me know what you guys think and what changes you would make, right? With that being said as well, make sure you hit the sub button down below if you are enjoying the content. Support is always appreciated. And if you haven't done so yet, check out the Maclunky Twitch and YouTube channel to show them support. If you do like high competitive streams with some really good commentating, they have some of the best, if not the best, content on the market when it comes to PQ streamed content. So make sure you hit them with a follow on Twitch, sub to their channel as well. And with that being said, we're going to go on and get out of here. We'll see you guys in the next video.